The CSU SAGM, or Semi-Annual General Meeting, occurred a few days ago in the CSU Library Lounge. In this meeting, the CSU went over their finances for the year, what they expect the future year to look like, and prepared for the upcoming general election on March 12th to 14th. The CSU's 2024 to 2025 budget report accounted for revenues of a little bit over $3.6 million and expenses of a little over $2.4 million. This has left just over $1.2 million as revenue, as gross profit, and nearly all of that is going into the currently expanding Student Union Building Fund. During the COVID years, so between 2020 and 2022, the CSU reported annual losses in the six figures and large six figures. And so a lot of this profit right now is acting as just a buffer for that, because the CSU is required to carry enough money to cover an entire year of expenses if they made no revenue. So in terms of membership fees, the vast majority of membership fees have been paid just through general membership, through tuition. And what we've actually seen, if we adjust for a rate of 3.4% inflation, is that it's a 5% decrease from the last fiscal year, 2023 to 2024. The total expenses in the 2024 to 2025 fiscal year equal $2,404,080, most of which is taken up by the general operating fund, and much beyond that taken up by things like health care for students, dental care for students, and whatnot. During the table here, you can see that about 60%, or all but about $1 million, is allocated to general operating costs. After the announcement of the 2024-2025 fiscal statements, the CSU continued to introduce their executive board and also to introduce their current campaigns that they've been working on ahead of the election in a couple of weeks. One of the two current campaigns that they are working on right now is called Make the Switch, and essentially it is an idea to switch textbooks from in-person paid-for textbooks to a free online service that could save students millions of dollars in the coming years. Another campaign to watch out for in this upcoming election, because it will take many changes in the coming years to come to fruition, is the Cap International Tuition campaign, which aims to cap international and domestic tuition increases at 2% per year for all students as an effort to combat the exponentially rising international tuition costs over the past years. So transit has been an issue for a while at CapU. The 245, usually in the mornings, you'll get lines 3 or 4 buses long. And the CSU has been trying to do as much as it can to combat that, to lobby TransLink, to lobby the government to give us more bus access to CapU. Currently, TransLink is operating at a loss itself, just trying to do what it's doing right now, and it itself is trying to lobby the government for more funding. So TransLink is going to be more of a long-term issue for CapU. A solution was tabled at the SAGM for a shuttle bus that goes from Surrey to Cap, directly to Cap in the mornings, and goes back in the evenings for a small increase in student fees. But generally, it lacks in completeness, and it would also be a more long-term project to finish. About half of the total time that the SAGM took to complete was taken by questions from the audience, which is wonderful. We love to see audience representation, but also the CSU does offer office hours. You can go in, check the office hour schedule, and go to see the representative that you're looking for without needing to attend every meeting. So as students, with all of this, we always want to be better represented. We always want our voices to be heard at every level of university government. And there have been a lot of issues recently with students not feeling like the CSU government is representing them, or like the CSU government isn't doing anything for them. And in these elections, it is really up to us, the students, to decide and do our research into our candidates to realize who we actually want to have on top. And there are a number of ways we can do research. One, the candidate forums that the Courier has posted, because this video is going to come out after that. The candidate forums that took place on March 5th and 7th are a really great resource. We have recaps and full video replays of them on the Courier website and on the Courier YouTube channel. Are super important in terms of fleshing out candidates, figuring out who's got a game plan, who's going to be representing the students. A lot of candidates did not show up for the election forums, and even that could say a lot about their campaign, whether or not they're out there working, they've got posters up, or if they're willing to speak in public and speak to the students directly. The CSU website additionally has statements from every candidate who has provided a statement to the CSU, but that is not necessarily every candidate in the election. Yeah, you know, it's like everybody has 10 minutes to put down an election statement. It's a really strong way to show yourself to voters who are just doing research, you know. A lot of the current voting system takes place not with posters, not with people recognizing names from places they've seen around campus. It's in friend groups and in chat groups and class groups, program groups, things like that. So these candidate statements are the best way for candidates to reach outside of their friend groups, outside of their cohorts and whatnot, and put their platforms in a place where everybody can access them equally. Voting in the CSU General Election will take place March 12th to 14th, in person only. So that means we will no longer get ballot links to our emails. We will have to show up in person. There will be voting stations in the CSU Library Lounge as well as the CSU Maple Lounge. And the voting stations will take place with secret ballots for every voter. So every voter will only be able to vote once, and their vote will be classified. And the reason that the CSU has pivoted to this fully in-person system is that previously, in the last couple of years, there's been a huge uptick in election misconduct, in attempted election fraud, in voter coercion, voter intimidation, as well as intimidation between candidates. And so this is the CSU's first step in these 2 years to really start fixing that problem before it starts. The CSU's election voter turnout over the past few years has been steadily increasing, but that doesn't mean you can rest on your laurels, and it doesn't mean you shouldn't get out and vote. And it's important before you vote to understand not only what the candidates want to do, but also what their roles would allow them to do. Because sometimes the candidate statements don't really line up with the role that they're campaigning for. So you can find this information directly from the CSU Elections website, and sometimes you can find it on individual candidates' Instagram pages or their statements to the CSU. Voting takes place on March 12th to 14th, totally in person, and we hope to see you there exercising your democratic